Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking into something, well, a bit strange.
Mhm.
We're living better than ever before, right? I mean, medically, financially, housing. The standard of living is the highest it's ever been in history.
Generally speaking, yes. Access is unprecedented for many.
And yet, human misery seems, well, everywhere. It feels rampant. Why is that?
It's a huge question.
Yeah.
And you definitely see the evidence, like just walk into any bookstore. The psychology and self-help sections are massive, aren't they?
Absolutely overflowing. Promises to fix us.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, based on the work we're digging into today, is that maybe those widespread ideas we have about happiness are actually the problem.
You mean the things we think will make us happy are making us miserable?
Kind of. They
That-
fuel this vicious cycle. The source material calls it the happiness trap.
Okay, intriguing. So we're not just talking philosophy here. This is based on something specific.
Right. We're drawing heavily from acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. It's an empirically supported approach.
Meaning there's solid research behind it.
Exactly. And the goal isn't just chasing momentary bliss. It's about helping you build, a rich, full, meaningful life.
While also dealing with the tough stuff, the inevitable pain.
Precisely. Learning to handle that pain effectively rather than letting it derail you.
And you mentioned some pretty striking results.
Yeah, I mean, the effectiveness is quite remarkable in some cases. There was one study, for example, with patients who had chronic schizophrenia.
Okay.
Just 4 hours of ACT therapy was enough to cut their hospital readmission rates by half.
Wow. 4 hours. That's genuinely astonishing. It suggests this framework has some real power.
It really does. It's practical, not just theoretical.
Okay, so if our misery is maybe fueled by these bad ideas, let's break them down. What are the core myths society tells us about happiness that are, well, wrong?
Well, there are a few big ones we tend to buy into. And maybe the most pervasive, the most insidious one, is this idea that happiness is the natural state for human beings.
Like, it's our default setting. If everything's okay externally, we should feel happy.
Exactly. That's the assumption.
Yeah.
But the data tells a very, very different story.
How so?
Well, the statistics are pretty stark, honestly. If you look at the population, almost 1 in 2 people, so nearly half.
Yeah.
Yeah, nearly half will at some point seriously consider suicide for 2 weeks or more.
That's heavy.
It is.
Yeah.
And even more sobering, about 1 in 10 people will actually attempt to take their own life.
1 in 10. So if many of us struggle so profoundly, the idea that constant happiness is normal just doesn't hold up, does it?
Not really, no. It forces us to conclude that, maybe happiness isn't the normal state. Maybe struggle is more common than we admit.
And that reframes everything, because if you believe happiness is the default, then what happens when you're not happy?
Well, then you run straight into the second myth. If you're not happy, you must be defective. There's something wrong with you.
Mental suffering becomes like an illness or a personal flaw you need to hide.
Exactly. And this leads to what the source called a conspiracy of silence. People feel ashamed of their anxiety, their depression, their fear.
So they pretend.
They pretend. There's this great anecdote about a receptionist named Penny. She joined a mother's group and felt terribly anxious, but she hid it for months. She was terrified they'd judge her, think she was weak or a bad mother.
Okay.
But then eventually, it came out. And guess what?
Let me guess. The other mothers felt the same way.
Pretty much all of them. They were all putting on this brave face, hiding their own struggles, worried about the exact same judgments.
Wow. So everyone feels alone in their struggle, thinking everyone else has it figured out.
Precisely. That silence just reinforces the myth that we should be in control, and if we're not, we're failing.
Which I suppose brings us nicely to the next big myths, the ones about control.
Yeah, they're kind of linked, myths 3 and 4. It's this powerful cultural belief that we can control our feelings, and more than that, we should be able to.
Like flipping a switch.
Sort of. But to really get this, we need to be clear about what we mean by happiness. The word actually has 2 very different meanings.
Okay, what are they?
Well, the first definition is the one most people think of, and the one society pushes. Happiness as a feeling.
Like joy, pleasure, excitement, that kind of thing.
Exactly, a pleasant emotional state. But like all emotions, it's fleeting. It comes and goes. It's temporary.
Right. You can't feel peak excitement 24/7.
Of course not. Then there's the second definition. Happiness as living a rich, full, and meaningful life.
Okay, that sounds different. More like an ongoing way of being.
Exactly. It's a process, a sense of vitality, of engaging with what matters to you. And here's the crucial part. A rich, full life, by its very nature, includes the entire spectrum of human emotions.
So sadness, anger, fear, they're part of that rich life too, not signs of failure.
Absolutely. They're just part of being human.
Hmm.
But our culture tells us to chase definition one, the fleeting feelings, relentlessly. Try to eliminate all discomfort.
And what happens when we do that?
Paradoxically, it often leads to a life that feels, well, hollow, unsatisfying. Because the harder you try to grab onto pleasant feelings and push away unpleasant ones, the more entangled you get. The struggle itself becomes the problem.
So the system's almost rigged against us from the start, fueled by these myths. Where does this wiring come from? Why are our minds seemingly designed to make us suffer sometimes?
Well, it really helps to look back at evolution. Our basic brain architecture was laid down, what, maybe 100,000 years ago?
On the savannah, basically.
Right. And its primary job wasn't to make us feel good or write poetry. Its number one job was survival.
Keep us from getting killed.
Exactly. Avoid threats, find food, find shelter, reproduce. Its core programming is geared towards detecting danger and problems.
And a big part of that was comparing things.
Oh, absolutely essential. For a primitive human, you had to compare. Is that berry safe? Is my cave safer than that one? Does that person have more food than me? Comparison was crucial for staying alive and improving your situation.
Okay, makes sense for survival back then. But now?
Now, that same super sophisticated comparison engine is still running, but it's applying itself to, well, everything, and often to impossible standards.
Like what?
Like comparing your real everyday body to an airbrushed supermodel on a magazine cover, or comparing your messy behind-the-scenes life to someone's perfectly curated Instagram feed.
Ah, so the comparison engine guarantees we almost always feel not good enough in some way.
Pretty much. It's designed to find the difference, the potential lack, the threat. It's relentless.
That sounds exhausting.
It can be. And then we layer on top of that the illusion of control.
What do you mean?
Think about the physical external world. Control strategies work brilliantly there, don't they? If there's a wolf outside your door you don't like, you take action. You scare it away, you build a fence, you get a weapon to exert control.
Right. Problem solution.
And because that works so well out there, we mistakenly assume we should apply the exact same logic to our internal world, our thoughts and feelings.
That's where you get those messages we all heard growing up.
Totally. Things like, don't cry, stop worrying, snap out of it, just be positive.
Yeah, the implication being that feelings are like misbehaving children we should be able to just order around.
Exactly, that we should have an on-off switch for anxiety or sadness. And if we can't find the switch, or it doesn't work, well, then we feel even more defective. Myth 2 kicks back in.
So when we try to use these external world control tactics on our internal experiences, what's that called again?
The technical term ACT uses is experiential avoidance.
Experiential avoidance, okay.
It basically means using strategies excessively or inappropriately to try and get rid of unwanted internal stuff. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, even when those strategies actually cause harm in the long run.
What kind of strategies?
Oh, loads.
Yeah.
Distractions, zoning out, arguing with your thoughts, drinking too much, avoiding situations that might trigger feelings, compulsive behaviors. The list is long.
Well, wait, sometimes distracting yourself is helpful, isn't it? Like, if I'm really upset, watching a movie might be good.
That's a really important point. The key isn't the strategy itself. It's the function and the cost. Does the strategy help you move towards the life you want, or does it pull you away? Does it work long-term, or does it create new problems?
Ah, okay. So temporary relief that traps you later is avoidance.
Exactly. The author of the main source, Russ Harris, shares a really vivid personal example of this.
The Tim Tams.
The Tim Tams. He talks about being in his early 20s, really struggling with anxiety, and his go-to coping strategy.
Sugar. Lots of it.
Truckloads. He said sometimes he'd eat 5 whole packets of Tim Tams. Those are Australian chocolate biscuits, for listeners who don't know, in a single day.
5 packets. Wow.
Just to numb out, to distract himself from the anxiety.
Yeah.
And, short term,
Yeah.
probably worked a bit. Sugar rush, distraction.
The long term.
Disaster.
Yeah.
Led to significant weight gain, high blood pressure. The solution became a massive problem in itself. That's experiential avoidance in action.
Okay, so that really clarifies the happiness trap. We desperately want to feel good, so we try to avoid or eliminate bad feelings.
Right. We use control strategies, avoidance.
But the harder we try to suppress or fight them, the more entangled we get, and often the more bad feelings we actually create, like anxiety or guilt about feeling down.
That's it. That's the trap in a nutshell. It's a self-perpetuating cycle.
So how do we get out? If control isn't the answer, what is?
Well, ACT proposes the way out isn't through more control, but through acceptance. And the first step involves changing our relationship with our thoughts.
Our internal narrative, the stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly. ACT refers to the mind as the great storyteller, or sometimes the word machine. It's constantly churning out language, thoughts, judgments, beliefs, memories, words.
And the problem isn't the words themselves, it's how we relate to them.
Precisely. The problem state is called cognitive fusion.
Fusion, like stuck together.
Yeah, fused. It means you're so tangled up with your thoughts that you treat them as absolute reality, literal truth, or as commands you must obey.
Can you give an example?
Sure. If you're fused with the thought, I'm useless,
Right.
it doesn't feel like just words in your head. It feels like an objective fact about who you are. You react as if you're genuinely useless. The thought dictates your feelings and actions.
Okay, I get that. So the antidote to fusion is?
Diffusion, cognitive diffusion. It's about learning to step back and see thoughts for what they are.
Which is?
Just strings of words, sounds, stories, mental events passing through. Diffusion techniques help you separate from your thoughts so they have less influence over your behavior. You don't have to believe them or fight them.
So you're not trying to get rid of the thought, like positive thinking isn't the goal here.
Not necessarily.
Mm.
You might still have the thought, I'm useless, but you see it as just
Duh.
noise the mind is making. You unhook from it. The most pragmatic way ACT suggests doing this is shifting the question.
From what to what?
Instead of asking, is this thought true? Which can lead to endless debate with your own mind.
Yeah, been there.
Right. Instead, you ask, is this thought helpful? Right now, does paying attention to this thought, believing it, help me move towards the kind of person I want to be, the kind of life I want to live?
That's a different lens entirely. Helpful versus true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that thought, you're a lump of lard, look at that disgusting belly. Is that helpful? If it just makes you feel ashamed, want to hide under the duvet, probably not.
So if it's not helpful, you diffuse, you unhook.
You got it. And ACT has lots of, well, sometimes quite playful techniques for this.
Like the musical thoughts one.
Yeah, that's a classic. You take a really sticky, painful self-judgment like I'm such an idiot, and you literally sing it.
Sing it.
Yes, sing it silently in your head, or even out loud if you're alone, to the tune of something silly like Happy Birthday or Jingle Bells.
Chuckle slightly. Try it sometime. It's hard to take, I'm such an idiot, seriously when it sounds like a nursery rhyme. It changes the quality of the thought from a heavy truth to just ridiculous noise. It helps you see it's just words. I like that. It's creative. Okay, so that's handling thoughts diffusion. What about emotions? The actual physical feelings in the body.
Right, because emotions aren't just thoughts, are they? They show up physically. They prime the body for action, create sensations, urges.
Yeah, that knot in the stomach, the racing heart.
Exactly. And our usual reaction, driven by those myths, is to fight those sensations, to try and make them go away. This is where ACT uses the metaphor of the struggle switch.
The struggle switch.
Imagine you have a switch inside you when an uncomfortable primary emotion shows up, like anxiety, sadness, anger, maybe grief. That's just life happening. That's unavoidable pain. ACT calls this clean discomfort.
Okay, clean discomfort, natural pain.
But then we often flip the struggle switch to on. We start fighting the feeling. You shouldn't feel anxious. The sadness is terrible. I have to get rid of it.
And struggling with the feeling.
Creates a whole new layer of suffering on top. This is dirty discomfort. It's the suffering we create ourselves through resistance. So you get anger about the anxiety, guilt about the sadness, frustration about the frustration.
So we're adding suffering to suffering.
Precisely. The goal then isn't to eliminate the clean discomfort, because pain is part of a full life, but to turn the struggle switch off.
How do we do that?
Through a skill called expansion. Expansion is about making room for difficult feelings and sensations, allowing them to be there without fighting them. It's the physical counterpart to diffusion.
Okay, making room. How? This sounds difficult when a feeling is really intense.
It takes practice, for sure, and it relies on accessing a particular part of ourselves, what ACT calls the observing self.
The observing self? What's that?
It's the part of you that's simply aware. It's the you that notices your thoughts, feelings, sensations, notices what you're seeing, hearing, touching. It's pure awareness, without judgment.
Is it like consciousness itself?
Kind of. A useful metaphor is that the observing self is like the sky. And your thoughts, feelings, sensations, they're like the weather.
The weather.
Yeah. The weather is constantly changing: storms, sunshine, clouds, wind. It can be wild and turbulent. But the sky itself, the space in which the weather happens.
Isn't harmed by the weather.
Exactly. No matter how bad the storm, the sky remains vast, open, and untouched. The observing self is like that sky. Even during the most intense emotional storm, that core awareness remains.
So even in a massive panic attack, there's a part of me that's just watching, unharmed.
That's the idea. It might feel completely overwhelmed, but the capacity for awareness is still there. Expansion is about deliberately connecting with that observing self, that inner sky.
Okay, how do we do that practically? What are the steps for expansion?
It's generally taught as a three-step process. First, you observe. You notice the sensations in your body, non-judgmentally. Where is it? What's its shape, temperature, vibration? Get curious, like a scientist exploring something new.
Observe. Okay.
Second, you breathe. You breathe into and around the sensation, not trying to blow it away, but using the breath to create space for it, to soften around the edges.
Breathe into it. And third
is allow. You allow the sensation to be there. This is the core of turning off the struggle switch. You're not saying you like it or want it. You're just dropping the fight, making room for it to exist.
Observe, breathe, allow.
OBA.
Exactly. It's about opening up around the discomfort instead of tensing up against it.
This sounds like it requires, well, a lot of willingness.
Absolutely crucial. Willingness is key. And it's important to understand what willingness means in ACT. It does not mean wanting or liking the difficult feeling.
Okay.
Willingness means being prepared to allow that discomfort, to make room for it, if doing so helps you move in a direction you value.
So it's acceptance in the service of something bigger.
Precisely. It links back to that second definition of happiness: living a rich, full, and meaningful life. What do you care about? What kind of person do you want to be? What matters to you deep down? Those are your values.
And values aren't like goals we can tick off, right? No, they're more like directions on a compass, like being loving or being courageous or being curious. You never permanently arrive at loving, but you can always choose to act in a loving way, moment by moment.
So you might be willing to feel anxiety using expansion in order to give that important presentation, acting on the value of contribution, perhaps.
Exactly that. You allow the feeling so you can do what matters. Acceptance and commitment therapy. The acceptance part is diffusion and expansion, allowing thoughts and feelings. The commitment part is taking action guided by your values.
Side by side, acceptance and action.
They work together. Allowing the discomfort creates the space to choose actions that build that meaningful life, even when it's hard.
Okay, this feels like a really practical roadmap out of the happiness trap. To sum it up, we need to diffuse from those unhelpful stories our mind tells us.
See them as just words.
Expand and make room for the difficult feelings and sensations that inevitably show up.
Turn off that struggle switch.
And then commit to taking action moment by moment that aligns with our core values, what truly matters to us.
That's the essence of it.
Yeah.
And maybe the single most empowering takeaway for anyone listening is realizing where your control actually lies.
Which isn't in stopping thoughts or feelings from showing up.
Right. You have very little direct control over that automatic flow. Thoughts pop up, feelings arise. That's just the mind and body doing their thing. But you do have direct, moment-to-moment control over two incredibly important things.
What are they?
Your actions, how you choose to behave, what you do with your hands and feet, and your attention, where you choose to focus it right here, right now.
Actions and attention, that's where our power is.
That's where you steer the ship. You can't control the weather, feelings, or the radio chatter, thoughts, but you can control the rudder, actions, and where you point the spotlight, attention.
Steering the ship, I like that. It feels much more doable than trying to control the entire ocean.
It is. And as you start trying to steer towards your values, expect some pushback from the old patterns. Expect the mind to throw up obstacles.
Obstacles like?
Well, there's a useful acronym that summarizes the common barriers that stop people from taking valued action. It's fear.
Fear. Okay, break it down.
F stands for fusion, with unhelpful thoughts getting hooked by those old stories. E is for unrealistic expectations, demanding things turn out perfectly or easily. A is for avoidance of discomfort, shrinking back from challenging feelings. And R is for remoteness from your values, losing touch with what truly matters to you.
Fusion, expectations, avoidance, remoteness, fear.
Yeah, but now hopefully you have a better sense of the tools: diffusion for the fusion, realistic goals instead of expectations, expansion and willingness for the avoidance, and reconnecting with why for the remoteness. You can face the fear and keep steering.
Towards the shore, towards that meaningful life.